Okay, welcome you to our November meeting. We'll start out with the recorder's report. There's not too much. There was a number of late warblers and shorebirds out there, just some late stuff. The only rare things that were noted were some peregrine falcons in downtown Tulsa and around Mohawk, and a trumpeter swan at Lake Yohola. And I guess there's some common goldeneye that have moved to come in that are a little bit earlier than normal. So that is that. The next thing I wanted to talk about is for those of you who read the email newsletter, the one we sent out at the beginning of November, I noted that we're going to vote on a change in our bylaws. So and we just have to have a general membership vote. The board has already approved these, but we need to have a vote of the membership at a regular meeting. And if you didn't read those, which if you didn't, I don't blame you, but there weren't major changes. There were just changes in how we can constitute a quorum at our board meetings and allow folks to when we wrote these, this was before the days of email and speaker phones and that kind of stuff, and just to allow us to be able to conduct our meetings and have some of the board members participate via electronic means, either, and also to just allow voting. We already were doing this, but we just wanted to make the bylaws match how we actually operate. So just to allow us to vote by email for the board, so it doesn't really impact anybody, anything, the normal operations of the society. And the other change was we're changing the recorder's position. It's always used to be, it was actually an officer of the society was the recorder. We're changing that to just be one of our committees. That back in the 50 years ago, it maybe made more sense. And now with eBird and all, we don't need to have the recorder being one of our officers. And our current recorder lives in Sand Springs, so he can't normally make board meetings anyway. So we've been sort of living without him anyway. I guess this would be restricted to those folks who are members of Tulsa Audubon. And if you're a member of National Audubon, you're automatically a member of Tulsa Audubon. So all in favor of the change in the bylaws as we enumerated in the newsletter, just please raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Okay. Julie, if you can note that has passed. We've had a real busy month. We had our Wild at Art a couple of weeks ago here at the Garden Center, and that was a very successful event. We've had an after-work birding and a young person's birding recently. The only other thing we have coming up between now and the next monthly meeting is the Christmas count. And so, Jeff, do you want to talk about that? And you need to come up here to the microphone.
Oh, there's a microphone. Oh, hey. Christmas Bird Count Saturday, December 14th, so that's not too far away. I sent out an email to last year's group leaders, and most people have responded. So if you're interested, and if you went last year and like who you went with and want to go with them again, then contact them, or you can contact me, and I'll hook you up with an appropriate group. I'll be around for a while. Thanks.
I've never been on a bird camp. Can you tell us where to go?
I'm always telling people where to go. Or people are telling me where to go, maybe. Yeah, we have, if you're interested, you can come see me after the meeting, but it's all day. That's centered in northern Tulsa County, includes Owasso and Sperry and Skiatook. We've got about 10 different areas. Each area has a leader, and they're responsible for going out and counting all the birds they can find in that area.
I see.
So,
but you don't have to stay all day. You said it's all day.
Well, if you're in my group, different groups have different criteria for what the all day means. So,
Technically, it's a 24-hour count, so.
We-
And the really hardcore people go out looking for owls in the morning, which I used to do, but I don't anymore.
Will we have a little gathering afterwards?
Well, probably. I have not made any efforts to this point in time to arrange such a gathering. But based on past experience, I imagine that there will be such a gathering, yes. More information will be forthcoming, yes.
Yep. So watch the email. We'll have another email going out in early December with an update on the December events, and you can watch on our Facebook page or call Jeff and just bug him.
Yeah, and don't look into that thing, that's really bright.
Can you mention the statewide list?
Yes, and also on our Tulsa Audubon website, we have a list of all of the Christmas counts around the state that Ron has compiled. All that he's bugged all the Christmas count compilers around the state. So if you'd like to join up on, and some of these other counts have very few people participating, so they can.
Yeah, we just lost another one
Oh,
for this year.
oh man, okay. So we really need people to help with these other counts. So if you're interested, check out that list, and if it's got the dates and the compiler and all the information on each count. And if you're free that day, it's a really fun thing to do, and it's a good excuse to get to some other part of the state. There's some that aren't too far; they're all over the state. So you can go all the way out to at western Oklahoma, or there's several more just in northeast Oklahoma that you could do. So check that out if you're interested. And doing a Christmas count, you don't need to be an expert birder, because as Jeff said, we'll put you in with a group, and there'll be some good birders in that group. So
Do you count every bird you see, or?
yes,
specific one?
we count this one on a Christmas count. We do count the number of individuals. It's not always the absolutely perfect count, especially if you got a big flock. You'll estimate it somewhat, but we do the effort. The point of this is to estimate numbers of birds besides just number of species. But it's a lot of fun. A lot of people, this is their only birding they do all year sometimes. I know a couple people in my group, it's the only time they bird all year is to come out for the Christmas count. And the gathering is always a lot of fun, and everybody will go through the list and we'll see how many we got. So that's a really fun little time afterwards too. Okay, let's see, so that's our only other thing coming up before our next meeting. And also we are canceling Saturday morning birders in December, because the second Saturday is the same day as the Christmas count. So no Saturday morning birders, but so you do the Christmas count instead. And December 17th is our next meeting, and that's our annual Christmas show and tell program. So we invite you to bring some pictures or anything else you'd like to share. You can bring about 10, 15 pictures if you've been somewhere or gotten some cool pictures over the course of the year. Just bring them on a flash drive, and we'll load them up, and you can get to talk and show your pictures to everybody, and we'll just share that way. And we'll also have a little short presentation from Sienna, from her. She was our birding scholarship winner last year, recipient, and she'll be talking about her time up on Hog Island in Maine too. So she'll give a short presentation on that. So that'll be fun.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, yeah. Thank you. And I gotta. It's not. I'll have it out on the website shortly. But we do have a scholarship to a birding camp. Now there's a couple of camps that are eligible. There's one up in Colorado. The American Birding Association sponsors one in Colorado, and there's also one in Delaware. So you can get more, two different kinds of areas, an ocean habitat or up in the mountains. There is another youth birding camp down in the Chiricahuas in Arizona, run by Victor Emanuel Nature Tours, and there's also Hog Island. There's a week at Hog Island, which is run by the National Audubon Society, and that's off the coast off the coast of Maine. And these camps are all, the cost is anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 on these, and we do have a very generous donor who has donated some funds that we can give you a full scholarship to these camps. So if anybody's interested, watch out. I'll have the information. Todd will have it too. He can tell you about it. But look on our website. And these are birding camps. They're not nature camps. You don't have to be an expert birder, but you do have to have a really love of birds because you're going to be around a bunch of bird nerds for a week. If that sounds good, you'll absolutely love it. And it really is, a life-changing event. We don't have any, we have one alumnus here, don't we? Cameron? Yeah, we sent Cameron to a camp.
Long Island is amazing. You want to pick that one. I wasn't kidding about how into birds they are. They will, the staff members will dress up as puppets.
So anyway, keep an eye out for that, for basically high school age students.
Hey, my son liked it so much, he had his mom pay for it a second round. And they did all kinds, they did amphibians, reptiles, everything down there.
Yeah, they're really, really good. And the leaders at these camps are, some of the big names in the birding world. These aren't just some anonymous leaders that they have. These guys are the guys who write the field guides and who write the articles in the books, or they lead the big time nature tours. So these are names. The people who'll be leading these are names you would know if you're into birds. So anyway, keep an eye out for that, you guys, and if you're interested, please apply. Okay, let's see, who brought our refreshments tonight? Yeah, we.
It was.
You gotta,
Angie Frisell brought refreshments, and Margaret McQuaig, they both just went all out. And then Alan Hasagawa brought some fruit. So we appreciate that very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Oh, yeah. Well, for December, we have our kind of a party, actually, and we all bring things. So I don't need anybody to sign up for December, but I'm going to pass the sign-up chart for January, February, for the rest of the year. So if you can, there's a column just to bring pop, if you just want to bring pop, and then there's two columns for refreshments. So I'll get it started. Thank you.
you don't have to be. We really appreciate the great layout. Doesn't need to be fancy though. So just and also and please do feel free to bring something next month to share. Although if you don't, come anyway. We want everybody to be here for our Christmas program. Is there any, and obviously, as you see, I got bird seed back there. We have some left over, so I'd rather not take any of that home. So come, if you need any bird seed, come see me after the meeting. Is there anything else I'm forgetting to mention? Okay, then I'll have Cheryl introduce our speaker.
Our speaker tonight is Dr. Doug Wood from Southeastern Oklahoma State University. He's professor of biological sciences there. And I'd say Doug almost doesn't need an introduction at Tulsa Audubon Society because he has graciously agreed to, in the past, to be a speaker, and he's becoming an annual speaker, I think. We always love to have him come. He traipses around the world on exotic bird trips and then comes and shares his photography and tales of adventure and intrigue with us.
I'll work on the intrigue.
Oh, you do great with that. He got his bachelor's degree from Boston University in biology, his master's degree from Eastern Illinois University in zoology, and his PhD in wildlife ecology from Mississippi State University. So in addition to having fun adventures to share with us, he has a wealth of knowledge about the natural world. Please welcome Doug.
Thought she was literally going to drop the mic. Okay. Can you guys hear me with the microphone, or is this loud enough? Yeah. We're good? Okay. All right, well, thank you for having me back. I haven't counted up how long I've been coming here, but it's 6, 7 years at least.
2011.
Has it been? Oh my, okay. Well, let's go. Open big, right? This is a hornbill, yeah. This is a rhinoceros hornbill. And you can tell, let's see the pointer. This is called a casque, C-A-S-Q-U-E, and it's an extension of the bill. So it's made out of keratin, and it's lightweight, it's hollow. And in sexual selection, brightly colored plumages, bill features, songs, displays are selected by females because it's indicating the male's genetic fitness. So this is a rather extreme case of it. And this bird is about 3 feet long. So it's a tremendous bird. So the title of my talk is Borneo, All the B Birds and More, because for some reason, I guess because it's Borneo, everything is barbets, bulbuls, broadbills, bristleheads, on and on. So there'll be a lot of alliterative B things tonight. So your English teacher will be proud that we did alliteration and some other stuff. All right, so this summer, went on a birding adventure. Actually went with a company called Tropical Birding. They're quite good. Spent about a week in peninsular Malaysia, flying into Kuala Lumpur. Went to Mutiara National Park, the famous Fraser's Hill, and some restored mangroves. Then spent the rest of the time in Borneo. The Danam Valley is extraordinary. We'll look at it for a little while. Sepalak. My favorite was going up the Kinabatangan River, and also Mount Kinabalu, which has a lot of endemic birds in this really high mountain range on Borneo. Talk a little bit about Malaysia. 20% of the world's animal species have been recorded in Malaysia. And that's a pretty stunning number to think about that. That includes the waters around the country. Over 2,000 tree species have been recorded. And again, in tropical latitudes, you tend to have a lot more biodiversity, like species richness of trees, but fewer individuals of each species. Whereas in temperate zones, you'll have a lot fewer species, but more individuals of each species. So for example, they record up to 240 tree species per hectare, whereas around here it's about 20 per hectare on average. So really a dramatic difference. 2007, satellite data show that about 2/3 of Malaysia was still forested. By this year, almost 60% of those forests are gone or severely degraded. And most of it's due to agro-conversion for crops to feed a growing population. Also urban sprawl, which we'll look at on a satellite image. And what's this? What's this showing? Yeah, date palms for palm oil. There's a major global use of palm oils, and this is an ecological disaster. It's a monoculture. Not very many wildlife species use this relative to the tropical lowland forest. So when I see this, I see all this lush green, but it's essentially very low value for wildlife. And anywhere you go in tropical lowlands, you're going to find these huge plantations, and it's very lucrative. So it's very difficult to combat. Malaysia, their conservation strategy revolves around national parks, which both serve as a park for recreation, hiking trails for the public, but then a big chunk of each one is essentially refugia. So classic park management theory, concentrate all your use by humans in one spot, try to protect some bigger natural habitat that's less intruded upon. Malaysia still has a pretty hardcore development attitude. Extracting natural resources at high rates is still quite prevalent. It's going to run out fairly soon on them anyway, so they're going to have to slow down. But a lot of anthropocentric thinking. Conservation is only good if you can make a few bucks off it. Other than that, there's not much of a conservation ethic yet, in my opinion. The illegal pet trade is still a major problem in Malaysia. You have animals like tigers, which are being collected for their parts and skins. The hornbills, the helmeted hornbill has its casque, is very similar to the rhinoceros horn. And so it's highly coveted for people to collect them. So it's pretty difficult in a lot of these fronts. And also exotic reptiles. Lots of cool snakes and lizards there. Logging, both legal and illegal, is an issue there. We've already talked about that a little bit. Illegal fishing. The Malaysian government's busted people using poisons to kill large quantities of fish to sell for food. So be careful of eating that ocean seafood sometimes. And including large-scale use of dynamite to collect fish in rapid quantities. So they've got a long ways to go still to do more conservation. All right, so we do our little flight path here. Start in Dallas, had to fly to Narita, which is just outside Tokyo, Japan. That's a short flight. Take your field guide and study, right? You got plenty of time. Or binge watch movies or the next season of, I don't know, The Walking Dead or something. And then from Narita, you fly down here to Kuala Lumpur. So here's Malaysia, the peninsular part, and here's their part of Borneo. The lower part of the Malaysian Peninsula is about 2 degrees latitude. The Borneo portion is actually farther north at about 6 degrees of latitude. So it's sandwiched in the intertropical convergence zone. And it's a lot of fun. Not in Borneo. Jay, I think we saw this bird in Antarctica a few years back. This is the Adelie penguin. And you're like, what the hell is he doing talking about penguins in Malaysia? Jules Dumont d'Urville. He was a French explorer. He was the first sort of Westerner to document Antarctica. And on the same voyage, he went by what we now call Malaysia. He was the first to use the term Malaysia on maps going back to the west. So he's credited with sort of the Antarctica and the Malaysia thing on the same run. The Adelie penguin was named after his wife. So if you're gone for like 5 years on a ship and you come back, the least you can do is name a penguin after your wife. The term Malaysia, there's some debate as to where it comes from. There's a Tamil word meaning mountain land that's early in the usage. There's also a Javanese word meaning flowing or swift-flowing river, where there's like a river estuary. They're not entirely sure where the name really comes from. So let's look at this image from Google Earth. So here's Kuala Lumpur. See all the brown? That used to be forested. So that's 7.3 million people. That's sprawl. Right. The darkest green areas are intact forests. This is in the mountains where Fraser's Hill is. You see some tropical lowlands. This is where Mutiara, where I went, was. You see some fairly intact tracts of forest. All the light green or brown that you see here is all forest that's gone and been converted to agriculture or urban situations or small villages, this kind of thing. So it's pretty daunting. So here's Borneo. You have Indonesia owns part of it. Malaysia owns this part, including Sabah, which is where I went. And then you have the I think it's a sultanate, isn't it? Brunei is a sultanate, which is where the name Borneo actually comes from. And Brunei means the kingdom. I actually prefer, well, there's the Malay word for the island is Kalimantan. And it comes from a Sanskrit word, Kalimantana, which means burning weather island, which is true at its most purest form, I think. At least when I was there, it was unbelievably hot and humid. When I got off the plane in Dallas, I'm like, it's so nice here and refreshing. It was really sweat sauna type conditions. So we came in, flying to Kota Kinabalu, flew down to Lahad Datu. Here's the Danum Valley that we're going to talk about. You see it's still dark green. Then drove over to Sepalak. Got on a boat at Sendakan, went up, this is the Kinabatangan River. You talk about going up into the heart of darkness. You're going up in the middle of nowhere out there. You probably can't read it, but that says Magpie Bank, and I'm just totally fascinated why that's called Magpie Bank and want to go there, but didn't. Then did a big run over. Here's Mount Kinabalu. We're talking 13,400 foot high mountain. It's pretty impressive. And then from there, you go back to Kota Kinabalu, back to Kuala Lumpur, back to Narita, back to Dallas. Then you went up at like 4 in the morning in an IHOP, totally jet lagged. Malaysia is the 42nd largest country in the world by population. In 1950, they had 6.1 million people. 2000, 23 million. 2019, up to 32 million. So basically, what, pentupled over that time frame? It's a remarkably fast growth rate. The Kuala Lumpur area has over 7.3 million people in this huge, sprawling area of the land. And they're about 68th in total land area. This bird, which was hanging outside the air traffic control tower at the airport at Kuala Lumpur, is Oriental magpie robin. There's an adult feeding a youngster right there. They're kind of like the common open air bird, almost like a mockingbird or a robin kind of frequency that you see here. Did the brief stop in Narita, had time before my flight to go out and walk around, so I went to a temple, which they usually have little forests and streams and stuff, so you get some quick Japanese birds in there. Like brown-eared bulbul. There's one of our B birds, brown-eared bulbul. So really nice. And bulbuls are a huge family of birds. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they might have the most species of any family of birds in Africa and Asia. The aptly named large-billed crow, it actually looks more like a raven, with this gigantic bill. We'll look at a video clip of it later. The Japanese tit, if you look carefully, you see a little goldish nape, which separates it out from the other tits or chickadees on the island. All right, so let's get down to Malaysia. Flew into Kuala Lumpur, had some time to kill, so I didn't get arrested or anything, but the air traffic control tower had some nice forested little park-like area, and so I kind of went behind some gates or something. Nobody shot at me or chased me out, so yeah. Forgiveness, permission, that whole thing. So this is the Asian coel, and it's a member of the cuckoos. It has a pale bill, red eye, big, heavy cuckoo. They're also eponymous. Oh, where's David? You gonna play Asian coel for me? Sounds like a common poor will. But that's saying coel, so it's eponymous, it's onomatopoeic. Thank you. It was kind of a neat little find just out inside the tower. Obligatory drive-by of the Petronas Towers. There we go, Petronas Towers. If you don't mind heights and rickety things, you can do this little crosswalk thing here. They're really impressive towers, though. Common myna hanging around, excellent mimics. They can make all sorts of neat noises. It was raining here and it was sitting underneath a girder, just singing a huge variety of different sounds. House crow, hang around urban areas there. Pop quiz, what is it? The magpie robin, yeah, good, same bird. And if you hang around just a little bit long enough around the hotel, you go out to the soccer fields along the stream, and you find white-throated kingfisher hanging out on a pole. This is probably the find of the afternoon. A lot of kingfishers don't actually capture fish. There's a lot of forest kingfishers around the world, and so our belted is kind of more the exception than the rule in some ways. And you can actually see dried mud, and what it looked like it was going on was getting earthworm and other invertebrates out of this muddy area along the stream. It wasn't actually going into the water. This bird is quite big too, large kingfisher. The zebra dove looks a little bit like our Inca dove. They're quite common in urban areas and disturbed areas. So when you study for a trip, you make a list of all the birds you think you're going to see, and some are really rare and you go, not going to see that. This is the mountain peacock pheasant. I didn't really study this bird much. I kind of was like, Then you're walking through a forest outside of Kuala Lumpur on the side of a mountain and go, wait a minute, what's that? And sure enough, here's one walking around on the ground in the forest. So got a quick picture. We'll look at some video of this guy later. But bird you kind of hear in the distance but don't usually see, and sometimes you just get lucky. This was more luck than skill. And that's okay. Great primates in Malaysia. You have, this is the dusky langur. And you'll see a little bit better in the video, but it has two white marks on the outside. It looks like its eyes are in parentheses. And then it has this whitish or pinkish white lip. And it was eating some sort of fruit. These are dipterocarp trees. Dipterocarp means two-winged fruit, and it's a common type of tree in the tropics there. They can grow up to 280 feet tall, some of the species. So really impressive trees. All right, so we road tripped up. It was a guide, me, and a birder photographer from Sweden. So the ideal group size is a very small number of people, right? Went to Taman Negara, kind of means national park, I think, and this is Mutiara National Park. So you drive there and you have to go across the river on boats. If you look really carefully, there's a funicular right here that carries it's the counterbalance system of moving things. They move your luggage up so you have to carry them in the heat and the humidity. There's me. There's Phil, the guide. I was telling some people earlier, the crazy thing happened. We were talking at dinner early on. I was like, so where do you go after this? What's your next group you're going to lead? He said, Southeast Arizona. I was like, me too. I take my Southeastern Field Ornithology class to Arizona, and turns out we overlap by 2.5 days in the same spot in the Huachucas. So we actually teamed up with his tropical birding group, and we did a little birding together and stuff. It's pretty cool. The Swedish guy knew American current events probably better than us. He was like religiously reading all the US news on his phone. I was like, damn, I feel like I should be keeping up. Lots of cool herps. This is a water monitor, a young one, along the river right there. We'll see water monitors later. One of our bee birds, black and yellow broadbill. And broadbills often have these broad turquoise or pale blue bills. They're absolutely stunning. Notice the blocking of color, the pinks, blacks, whites, yellows. I think birds and art intertwine at great levels, and I remember seeing this painting, and it instantly popped into my head. This is by John White Alexander, who was an American portraitist who was famous in his time. This one's the Grand Duchess Charlotte of Luxembourg. But notice the color blocking, pink, black, white, yellow. He did all these kind of pastel blockings in his portraits a lot. So I just reminded me of that bird. He's really good portraits, but his fingers are terrible. He looks like a character in The Simpsons or something. Lots of cool little lizards, skinks everywhere. This one is interesting. It also has red color right between the bend of the legs. You know what kind of coloration that's called? It's called aposematic coloration. And you've seen a bullfrog, they'll have like a little yellowish or orange patch with them. It's basically to deter predators. So if a predator's about to grab you and you jump and you flash that color, it gives them a little startle response. That may be just the advantage you need to get away. This is the green broadbill, another one of our bee birds. And if it holds still up in the canopy, forget about it. So you need to hear them calling when they're territorial. And my former student, Marky over here, she works at the Tulsa Zoo in the bird department, props. She wanted to kind of hang out, get involved here. So I asked her to play the green broadbill song. Good. They call it Little Tarzan. Tarzan swing through the jungle, like paging Johnny Weissmuller or Ron Ely or whoever. And luckily they were calling, so we got to see a number of these, which I wasn't even expecting to see this bird very well. So, not a bird, well, a very primitive bird. This is Wagler's pit viper. I consider myself a very observant person. I watch and notice a lot of things. I was with two other people who were extremely skilled at finding things. We were birding down trail one afternoon, and one of the national park guides came walking to us and said, "Did you guys see the snake?" And we went, "What snake?" Walked about 100 meters back down the trail, and sitting right here is this snake. So we all walked by at eye level by a highly venomous snake that's sitting on an exposed branch and is bright black, yellow, and white. You then spend the rest of the afternoon looking for more of these, right? Because this happens. It will get worse later if the scary snake thing's still going to come around again. Absolutely exquisite snake. It's named for Johann Georg Wagler, or Wagler, probably off Deutsch. He was a German zoologist. He worked mainly in Brazil. And one of his colleagues was working in Southeast Asia and named several species after him in his honor. They worked back in the 1800s, and they did a lot with the shotgun ornithology. You know, they collect birds and stuff, say, with a gun. He accidentally shot himself in Brazil while collecting birds. So, you know, binoculars are a little safer, I'm just saying. Oh, definitely, yeah. It was not good, apparently. They did some experiments on this. They have the pit organs to detect heat changes in the environment to find prey and avoid predators. They found they could detect differences in temperature of 0.003 Celsius. I'm not even sure how you test to get that close, but that's a remarkable way to tell just the slightest temperature difference in their environment. One of our bee birds, this is red-throated barbet, and barbets often have these kind of vertical dagger-like bills for capturing insects and plucking fruits. The fruits give them the carotenoids to get these brilliant colors of red, orange. That's actually blue feathers, not blue skin on the bird. And these very thin, barbless feathers are called rictal bristles. They're sensory feathers around the eye and the nares. And the reason why I was able to get so close to this one is we found a nest cavity with its nestlings inside. So it was making feeding trips back and forth to the cavity. It was also having a battle royale with a pair of banded woodpeckers that were about 50 feet away from this. And they would just have big dust-ups when they were trying to get in to feed their nestlings. Left Mutiara, about 5 pounds lighter after sweating off all that weight, went up to the mountains, which is just a couple thousand feet up, but it's well appreciated. Fraser's Hill. Lewis James Fraser was a Scotsman. He was an entrepreneur. He was into mining, and he was looking for ore and different minerals up in this area. And let's see, ooh, we have high school students who've had chemistry, yes? They're all like, no, we don't have chemistry. Even if they did, they're not copping to it now. Let's see, periodic table, SN. 10, nice, well done, good job. Now the SN is kind of weird, right, for tin, but there's a debate about where it comes from. Stannum in Latin, which is like a lead-silver alloy, but the Cornwall has tin mining, and their word is Sten for it. So there's apparently some big etymological debate as to where that comes from, but he found tin, okay? And he found a lot of it. So in the 1890s, he started mining tin there. He disappears without a trace in 1915. The two competing hypotheses are, one, tiger. There was a tiger on camera traps inside at Mutiara 2 weeks before I was there. That also highlights your birding senses a little bit, heightens them up a little bit. And he very well could have gotten grabbed by a tiger. Competing hypothesis, he was killed so people could take over his mining. It's the second one, because they divvied up his mining operation pretty quickly. Fraser's Hill has a famous birding competition. The Brits used to leave the coastal areas to go up the mountains to cool down, established a little community there, and they got into the bird thing, and we got there the week after the bird comp. Beautiful views through the mountain valleys. You see lots of fences around places that have to do with the primates. Stop feeding the monkey. If you feed monkeys, monkeys expect more food, and if you don't have more food, they rip your face off, kind of thing, right? So it's kind of like bears. You know, you feed a bear, you kill a bear. If they start getting aggressive, they'll kill the monkeys. So people put up a lot of signs, try to discourage the feeding of them. If you electrify the fence, you would then be shock the monkey. Thank you, 80s musical reference. There will be more. It'll get worse, or better, depending upon your view. Bronze drongo. These are a flycatcher type bird. Probably the most interesting thing here is the fact that it's molting its tail. Yeah. So, and keep in mind too, even though this bird likes dark forest understory, it's bluish black in color. A lot of birds reflect in UV or near UV light, and they can be seen by others. So something that looks fairly bland and drab actually might be quite extravagantly plumage. We just can't perceive it with our natural eyesight. Nice showing by a little cuckoo dove, which is a common dove species in this area, in this elevation. Really just beautiful bird with the bluish iris and the different rufous colors. Little pied flycatcher, little tiny guy. So a little bit bigger than a gnatcatcher, a little black mask and very hyperactive. They were in mixed flocks on the slopes here, and have a little video of it later. Not a bird. What type of plant? It's a pitcher plant, yeah. It's in the genus Nepenthes, which is a whole variety of pitcher plants. So there's pitcher fluid down in here, which is water mixed with viscous, kind of like sticky material, plus 29 different digestive proteins. So when ants, flies, whatever come in to get the water, they crawl down in, they hit the viscous material and get stuck, and then they get dissolved. And the plant extracts proteins from these insects. They've recorded in Nepenthes pitcher plants small lizards, birds, and even rodents being caught and dissolved in them. So pretty neat. The other really cool behavior that they have is when it rains, this leaf right here, I didn't get the full frame, it closes down perfectly like a lid. What happens if it rains, the actual rainwater gets inside there, it dilutes the pitcher fluid and reduces its ability to capture prey. So they just basically close the lid. When the rain stops, they open it back up. Yeah. Complete the lyric, here I am. Rock you like a hurricane. Wow, this guy in the cat's good. He's got it down. This is a giant blue scorpion. The band The Scorpions did Rock You Like a Hurricane. Rock You Like a Hurricane. Classic 80s. We named my Boy Scout patrol after the Scorpions. Come on. Like,
Yeah, right, I know.
we weren't that nerdy, yes, even then. Okay. Giant blue scorpion. That's just like a key in a room key kind of card there. Just shows some size, but it was suddenly a little startle moment there. Don't get stung. Tiny little rufous-browed flycatcher. Really cute. Got this neat little white throat with a little black outline on the collar, the rufous brows. There was a little, we timed it pretty well on our trip by luck. That a lot of things had just fledged young. So you had a lot of parents feeding fledglings. So there's a lot more movement, better detectability on your trip. Wasn't expecting to see this one. Streaked wren babblers usually sit down on the forest floor like a wren and hide in all the leaf litter and all that. This one hopped up around the corner of a culvert out of nowhere. None of those you just kind of go, thank you, birding gods, and take it and run. Did you call it a babbler? Yeah, streaked wren babbler. And they are quite vociferous. And there's also just babblers, but there's also wren babblers, there's jewel babblers, there's all sorts of cool babblers. It's kind of like a Carolina wren for us. We are the Sultans. Sultans of Swing. Yeah. The jokes are in dire straits. Okay. This is the Sultan tit. This is a chickadee about this big that's blue, black, and yellow. It's really, really neat. They don't sit still, though. They fidget, so I didn't get a good image here. I got a little video of it. Also pretty nice, white-tailed robin popped up on the branch. You see the white-tail feathers. Again, notice the bluish black. I'd bet cash money these reflect in the UV spectrum. White-thighed langur. And you notice this is on the slope of the hill. You have the nice native vegetation, electrical cables. Yeah, yeah. They run power through the mountains there too. So we'll see a little video of this, this really cool langur later. Left Fraser's Hill, drove down to the coast. If you remember in 2004, there was a 9.2 magnitude earthquake off Indonesia. It was horrible. It killed over 250,000 people minimum. And there was a lot of analysis after that. And something that the conservation community has been harping for years, which is in coastal areas, people remove mangrove. Mangrove are trees that grow in salt water, right at the shoreline basically, or in tidal zones. And they want to remove it so there's nice sunrise, sunset views of the, the ocean and all this kind of thing. But when you have an earthquake and then a tsunami, you have a wall of water coming to that shoreline. And if there's nothing there to impede it, it just smashes into whatever's there. Using GIS imagery and looking at the distribution of mangrove before and after, areas where the mangrove was and that wall of water hit, it dissipated a lot of that energy. And the damage and the death toll behind it was significantly less than areas where they'd removed mangrove. So they're like, how do we get mangrove back? Like, well, you're going to start growing it. So what you do if you're a conservationist, you go to companies that usually extract resources from the environment at big profits and try to green shame them a little bit and be like, could y'all maybe donate some money to build back some mangroves and save some lives? They'll sign up, right? So you go BirdLife International and have them go talk to whoever's doing the big bucks in the area. And they started replanting these mangroves. So this is what it looks like. This is when the tide's out. And you'll find a unique set of wildlife that lives within these zones, like the mangrove whistler. It's only found in mangroves in this part of Asia. So we trucked around inside there until we found them. There's also mud skippers, which is an amphibious fish. Some of you may have seen these videos before. They have little periscope eyes, and they can breathe out of water for a significant period of time. They get little burrows. The males chase each other. You can watch them all day long, totally. Except there are birds to look at, too. Gray leaf monkey. This one had such a wonderfully expressive face. Notice the really long guard hairs in the pelage. So these are protective hairs, and in the mosquito zone here, it's nice also to have that really thick fur, even though it's really warm. It helps keep the mosquitoes off them to a large extent. I found about a 30-foot zone before they started to really react to your presence. So this is about the point where it's like, okay, we're a little close now. Went back to our rental car and found 2 long-tailed macaques taking a nap on it. Now this is a bit tricky. You can't just go open your car door. Why? They know food is inside cars, and they will annihilate the inside of your vehicle. That guy from Sweden that was birding, he left his cabin door ajar a little bit. Long-tailed macaques got in and found the coffee packets they put in the room, and they just ripped apart that in part of his room. They ate part of his shoes. It was like, do not. I'll show you a video later of him on my porch. I was like, so we were trying to chase him off. All right, so Swedish guy flew back to Sweden, brought in 4 Americans to join up. We went to Borneo, drove up the Dam Valley on the entrance road in, cruising along, come around the corner, and there's a small troop of the pygmy elephants in the road. The driver got on his cell phone and started calling all the other drivers in the conservation district to bring their clients, so they had photographers, birders, whatever. It had been 3 weeks since they'd been seen, and we waltzed into them by sheer luck the first day.
How big are they?
They're only 8 to 9 feet tall. They weigh about 5,000 pounds. Now, an African elephant weighs 12,000 pounds for comparison. So 2.5 tons of fun or 6 tons of fun, take your pick, right? There's only about 2,000 to 3,000 of these left in Borneo. The problem is human population growth and forest fragmentation. People will cut out parts of the forest to farm, and then they interact with the elephant. And when elephants and people interact, There have been casualties on both sides, but overwhelmingly the elephants lose. The farmers will kill the elephants to keep from their crops, and the elephants sometimes trample people. So it's a little awkward, but this was really exciting to see these right off the bat. Never saw them again the next 5 days. Salamat, welcome. Borneo Rainforest Lodge, pretty nice place. This is the black-crowned pitta. Pittas are primarily ground-dwelling birds. They're very secretive, but they sing a lot. You just have to be really patient. Might take you 30 minutes. For one species, we tried for 2 hours, never saw it. And it was no farther than me to that camera. We got a cool video of this guy singing a little bit later. Remember the mountain peacock pheasant? Malayan peacock pheasant. This was near an observation tower. You get the peacock reference, obviously. Absolutely spectacular. If you look really carefully, it's banded. It's not in a zoo or anything like that. This is a wild bird. They were doing a study, doing mark recapture methods, also doing telemetry. This one's not telemetered, but their numbers have been dropping in the park. It's a preserve. They should not be dropping. They were, so they initiated a study. Trogons. You may be familiar with the New World tropics, but there's Old World trogons. This is scarlet-rumped trogon. It's a fairly small one, only about yay big. This is the male, and this is the female, who's more orangish with a brown head. They were moving along through the canopy feeding a youngster, which made it a lot easier to find them than normal. B bird, banded broadbill. I'd seen this bird before in Cambodia, but it was nice to see him again. I got some sweet video. I'm also going to show you a difficulty of birding video of this guy a little bit later, and it looks really easy on this branch, but it's not that easy. One of my favorite birds in the whole world are tree swifts. This is the whiskered tree swift, appropriately named, of course, here. And they have a teeny tiny little bill, okay? But when they pop that bill open, it's just like one of our swallows. They have this huge gape inside, and they actually suck insects out of the air into their bill. When they pop that open, it creates that suction, just pulls them right back in. And this was a very accommodating bird. Got his picture made. Canopy towers. Oh, it gets worse. So when you're on the ground and you have trees 200 plus feet tall, it's hard to see up there. So there's a tendency to want to build canopy towers and walkways. And you can see this walkway here. Here's the next one going out this way. And you can see you're up into the canopy. So you can access a lot of wildlife you would not normally see. This is about 70, 80 feet off the ground. You walk up a ramp to get to it. It's also built by Malaysians who are about this tall, so the handrails are down here. I'm going to fall off this thing. It's rickety. I weigh too much. I need to lose some weight. So you had to climb up a ladder to get to the next one and go out, and they were like, these are the safest things ever. Well, one of them fell down. Lightning hit the tree split, brought down tower number 4, I believe it was. So this was tower 3 out here, and then you couldn't go past it because it fell down. And they tell you that while you're up there. It's like, great, thanks. John Cougar Mellencamp reference. Well, yeah, okay, figured that was in. So here's from platform 1, which is pertinent. Sorry, Jay. Sorry, just a little apology in advance. It's where we saw this guy. It's not a great picture by any stretch of the imagination, but it's Bornean bristlehead. And this is highly coveted by birders. It's a monotypic family, so it only has one species in the whole family. And the bristlehead, we were seeing it clear across that road from the tower. We've been looking for 5.5 days for this bird. They live in family groups of 6 to 10. We think they might be cooperative breeders. We're not really even sure. No one's ever found a nest, but they exist. So we were looking, and then we heard them. We ran up the tower, and we were able to get some quick looks across here. Everybody was super excited. Happy, happy, joy, joy, high fives, all that good stuff. Another one of our B birds. And a lot of pressure off. That's one of the hard ones to find. I think, Jay, you guys heard them? At least? Yeah. This is what it should look like. This is not my picture. I stole it off Google. Because look at that tremendous bill and the hook tip. Your binocular views are better than your camera view usually. Sometimes nature's sitting right in front of you. This is a Bornean forest dragon just sitting about this high off the ground, holding perfectly still, like you can't see me, but did see him, so get your picture made. My new favorite squirrel, pygmy squirrel. Squirrel is 3 inches long, the whole thing. It weighs 0.7 ounces. And you think that's a mouse, right? But it's a legitimate taxonomic squirrel. And they eat lichens and bark. So, I don't know, I guess if you eat fruit, you're a frugivore. Is that a barkivore? Is that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's a real term yet. Need to write that up. Show you a little video of it later. Then went over to Sepalok, the Rainforest Discovery Center. It's kind of a big public ed kind of thing, so there were a lot of people around. I'm not a big fan of that, but they had really strong, solid canopy walkways and towers like this. So see, everything's really solid and sturdy here, which is good. So here's a view from the tower. This little pocket right here will become very important in a moment. By the way, if you're going to build a huge, like 30-meter plus tower, your slogan should not involve the word fallen. Especially if people are not good with heights. Just saying.
So there's a lot in English.
Yes, it was an English colony, so there's a strong history of Queen's English there. If you can read very carefully, it says, "I'm a naughty monkey." Sounds better with an English accent. I'm a naughty monkey. This is a pig-tailed macaque, which is my new favorite primate. And the signs basically says that these signs that they put up, they're kind of glossy. The primates tear them down. They don't like them. Like this. Ironically, it was not a pig-tailed macaque that did this. It was an orangutan. And so they rip off these signs, and they just don't like the signs for some reason. Blue-eared kingfisher hanging out a pond there at the center. It's really pretty. Their red-tailed hawk is the crested serpent eagle. And so you see these pretty much everywhere you go. Spots on the breast, spots on the top of the head, yellowish face. Luna moth-like moths, all sorts of cool butterflies there too. Green imperial pigeon from the top of the tower. Really large, kind of like band-tailed pigeons. Wallace's hawk eagle, which flew in to try to capture a giant squirrel. Giant squirrels are about this long. They're truly giant. I'll show you a video if we have time, I hope. Wallace was whom? Biology students? Wallace? Alfred Russel Wallace, Jeff Cox for the win. He co-discovered evolution by natural selection at the same time as Darwin. Darwin beat him to print, you know. He who publishes first wins. So this thing came in and tried to catch this squirrel, and the squirrel was just making a mockery of it. So this thing kept stopping and preening, and because you're up in the canopy, you have access to that. You would never be able to see this from the ground like this. I absolutely am in love with that photo. Okay. So Wallace's hawk eagle, a little tuft. Got it? I always like to find the critter thing. If you voted for here, you win. That is this, which is a young female orangutan, which is her. She was moving with her mother, and the mother had a infant on her side, and they were the ones that tore up the signs. And I will show you videos, if you guys will be patient with me, I'll show you some videos later. They crossed the boardwalk before, and then they wanted to come back, and a bunch of people kind of got between them, and they got very frustrated, and I'll show you some video of that. We'll have a vote as to when you know that they got frustrated. You'll probably figure it out. All right, we'll come back to that. Went up the Kinabatangan River. It was hot, it was humid, I loved it. First afternoon on the river, black hornbill. Absolutely gorgeous, big white casque here. By the way, at the same time, there's a white-crested hornbill, white-crowned hornbill in a tree just over here, so I'm doing the, what do you do, right? 3 continents, I've been looking for this damn bird. And on the way back to the lodge, driving up the river, sitting in the front, because it's always good to sit in the front, okay? You can be aggressive, sit up front if you want, okay? Look over, and it's a bat hawk. It's like the latest avian superhero. I'm Bat Hawk, right? You know. And they eat bats. There's a huge bat cave right near here. And we did go to the bat cave. You have to pay extra to take photos there. My camera's not very good, so I did not take photos there. But we watched bat hawks capture the emerging bats. We also saw peregrine falcons catching emerging bats. And this is the bat they're going after. This is the wrinkle-lipped bat. It's like a St. Bernard puppy, right? This is a wrinkle-lipped bat. Pretty cool. So this is the nose, this is the mouth, this is the ears, top of the head. There's the eye. The other thing that's in the cave that's of great interest is the edible nest swiftlet. You ever heard of bird's nest soup? This is the species that does it, and this is its nest. It will look either gray or white, and all it is crystallized sugar. It's its saliva, for all intents and purposes. Well, people have been collecting these things for a long time, but there's a question of sustainability. How long can you keep harvesting these if they don't have, and when can you harvest it? You want to get it while it's still fresh, all this stuff. There's people that think that it has holistic medicinal properties. If you think eating crystallized sugar will cure ED, have a Tootsie Pop or a Jolly Rancher. Don't go around collecting bird nests. There's also 2 other species that nest in the cave, which is the black nest swiftlet and the mossy nest swiftlet. But their nests have all sorts of junk in them, so nobody will eat them. So one of the conservation strategies is bat house, or in this case, a swiftlet house. So these are all up and down the river. They pay the locals to maintain them, and they're allowed to harvest the edible swift nests out of these boxes at a continuing rate. And then they try to protect all the ones in the cave from harvest. So you have this kind of core breeding group, and then these peripheral ones that may or may not breed successfully, but they get revenue out of it, and they don't go try to poach out of the cave. We can work smarter. Going out at night on the river, this is Buffy fish owl, which we'll watch a video of later. They eat fish, crabs, frogs at night. Kind of shy. Here's our little rock star rhinoceros hornbill again. There's that cool casque. And look at this preening. It's just that huge bill, but very delicate moves with it. If you go to the tropics, you'll find striated heron just about anywhere in the world. This you will not find anywhere in the world. Gray-bellied racer. This was just hanging over a branch on the side of the river. Here's a close-up. Notice the eye is very opaque. It looks like it's about to shed. Photobomb ant. Boom. A colugo. This is not a flying lemur, but it is a primate. It has webbed hands and feet. This membrane here. They glide on this patagium. That's what the wing membrane's called. Now, they're a primate. They're highly evolved, but they create a quasi-pouch. They'll take the wing membrane and the membrane between the ankles called the uropatagium, and they'll fold them up like this around their young. The female does this. So when she's crawling on the tree or sleeping, she can protect them in this kind of ersatz pouch. It's really kind of cool.
Can you spell that, please?
C-O-L-U-G-O, colugo. And you're walking through the forest also, you look over and there's this thing just hanging off the side of the tree. You're like, where'd that come from? They're really cool. Long-tailed macaques are the common monkey. And you're not supposed to make eye contact or smile at them. Those are challenge signals. It's kind of hard not to, but you kind of check them out. Scratch your ears, all the good stuff. We'll get some video of them later. This is my dude right here. This is a pig-tailed macaque. We're on a little tributary, and on either side of the tributary, there are 2 troops of about 30 to 40 pig-tailed macaques each. And it's like West Side Story. They're like facing each other down and snapping their fingers. We were drifting right. This guy could not have cared less we were 15 feet away. He was totally focused on the other macaques. And he has these great facial expressions. I know it's hard not to be anthropomorphic, but he's totally got these expressions. And I'm like, wow, we're so close. This is so intense. And see all the features, his little black little hairdo job thing here. He saw something that caught his curiosity. And that's why I may have been too close. I got a little side eye there, like, I think you're getting a little too close, so we back off. This is a juvenile proboscis monkey. And here's an adult male, and I'll show you a video in a little bit that shows the full proboscis. They have this large snout that they make a very nasally sound with. The black underside of the hands. I swear he was hiding behind stuff to keep us from getting a good photo. But he was watching a troop of about 20, 25 females, juveniles, and some younger males. Scariest thing I've ever seen. At one point, one of the young males in a tree across from him, probably 15, 20 feet away, looked right at him. And that's a challenge. And out of nowhere, he just lunged out of the tree, tackled it like a linebacker all the way to the ground, like 20, 25 feet, just a huge thud, and then chased it into the forest a little bit, then came back up the tree like nothing ever happened. And I'm like, I guess I should probably turn my camera on. Like, didn't. Right after this. Never failed. The red leaf monkey. This was a female eating these buds right here. You can see she's got them on her lip. Absolutely gorgeous. Western tarsier, the carnivorous primate. They eat birds, rodents, snakes, lizards, insects. You see the pads on the toes for gripping the trees. They jump and bounce through the trees, kind of like a mannequin would. Got a little video of this guy later. He wasn't being very camera friendly right here. Mangrove cat snake. There were 3 in this one tree. Couldn't get them all in the same frame. Really pretty. Pop quiz. We had this earlier. Crested serpent eagle. Sunning early in the morning on an oxbow lake. And yes, there's saltwater crocodiles up the Kinabatangan River. This guy, see a nice overlap right there. Yeah, dangle your toes over the boat when it's nice and hot out. I dare you. Big water monitor. Over 5 foot long in the body. Real stout like this. We'll look at some video. Then to Mount Kinabalu. You see above tree line, very high, over 13,000 feet. Ignore the huge cell phone tower. We got there, it's so beautiful, it's so clear, absolutely gorgeous. Then it was like the Eurythmics, here comes the rain again. So during the dry season, it then rained for 4 days, which crimps your birding style quite a bit, right? Crimps. It's hard to bird in the rain and the mist. The what?
Dry season, it only rains once a day.
It's only supposed to, yeah. But here's the power also. The bus drivers, like they were all hanging out, getting out of the rain, and they were complaining that this is ruining them. Okay, during the dry season, that's when they make their money. You know, the wet season, people stay at home and so they don't come up to this stuff, but they have to make money. And the bus drivers are literally sitting there talking about global warming. You're like, the uneducated bus guy is talking about how global warming is ruining his business. You're like, whew, okay. So we got lots and lots of this. Bornean mountain ground squirrel. These were quite, by the way, Malaysia Borneo is the squirreliest place I think I've ever been. They're all over the place. It is. It's crazy. Like, you keep thinking you're seeing birds moving in the canopy. It's squirrels. Bornean whistling thrush with those gigantic feet for hopping on the forest floor. Brown wood owl. This is a juvenile, fledgling here in white. This is one of the parents, tucked in there. And the other one's actually back here. You can't see it. But they were out moving around, feeding this fledgling, and pretty neat. Went back the next day, they'd moved off, but pretty cool. Flavescent bulbul, one of our bee birds. Indigo flycatcher, one of the blue flycatcher group. There's lots of blue flycatchers. Mountain imperial pigeon, which looks a lot like our band-tailed pigeon, like this. By the way, all the little white streaks you see, that's all rain going through. That's not the plumage. Sunda laughing thrushes are common there, mixed flocks especially. Real pretty. The lantern bug has this long proboscis in blue. They come in different colors. You'll see them on trees or on the ground. There was a low-grade fascination with lantern bugs throughout the trip for me. They're pretty neat. All right. This is Whitehead's broadbill. Highly coveted by birders. I found one in a mixed species flock for about 6.1 seconds. And only 2 of us saw it and it was gone. And we've been struggling to find what's called the Whitehead's trio. There's a broadbill, a trogon, and a spider hunter. And so I found the Whiteheads. We had it briefly, not everybody saw it. We found the spider hunter. We never found the trogon. They had stopped nesting. They were totally silent. It was brutal. But this guy was on the drive out. We were literally leaving to go back towards Tabanawan, and there was a group of Chinese eco-photographers that we've been crisscrossing for a couple days on the site. And we came down the mountain, middle of the road. They're all sitting out there with their tripods, these humongous cameras. We stop, lean out the window like, "Hi guys," and they're like, "Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on." And there's about an 80-foot drop off the side of the road there. And they found this right at eye level, about maybe 60, 70 feet in, and an absolute rock star, Whitehead's broadbill. John Whitehead was an English bird collector, naturalist in that area. It was named for him. And here's the trio. Here's the spider hunter with the yellow rump, which we did see, and the trogon we did not. I was deeply frustrated because how often am I going to fly to Borneo to see this again? Probably not. So by the numbers, I saw 3 new families on the trip. Calyptomenidae, the green broadbill, little Tarzan. Pityriacidae, if I'm going to say that right or not, I don't know. The Bornean bristlehead. This is the pygmy cupwing. It's like a ping pong ball with feathers. In the Nopigidae, I have a really horrible video. I won't even probably show it to you. It's so embarrassing. But they just kind of hop on the ground, and they're quite loud, but they're tiny. Saw 374 species total on the trip. The way it worked, the first week in Malaysia, I didn't think I was going to see a whole lot of new birds, but I've seen a lot in Cambodia. Turned out, saw great numbers there, like 117 new ones there. Borneo I thought was actually going to be better than it was. I think the rain really hurt us at times. We missed some stuff we should have done better at. But still ended up with 243 life birds, so pretty exciting there. Someone always asks, what's my next trip? Going somewhere exotic, unusual. This is from Ghana in West Africa, which, what's today? So 1 month from today, that's where I'm going to be. This is the yellow-headed picathartes, or rockfowl, an absolute stunner. They're colonial nesters, so hopefully we'll see these.